How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Sector 6, and today we're going to be having a look at some Final Fantasy XVI info because, you know, we're getting close. We're getting real close. We're less than 2 months away from the game dropping now, and I figured it'd be a good time to look back over all of the trailers and all of the information that we've already had. So that's what I've kind of been doing. Just going back over the trailers and just seeing if anything stands out. Something that we may have seen in an earlier trailer, thought nothing of it, but then with the context and the information that we've got now, it makes a little bit more sense. And doing this has definitely got me thinking about a few things, so I figured the only thing to do really is come and chat to you lovely people over on YouTube, and let's see if we can figure some things out. Now, I will say, it's probably going to be quite spoiler heavy. Some of this information is taken directly from what we've seen of the game, gameplay that we've seen during like the PAX East showcase, the State of Play showcase. So it's definitely confirmed information from within the game that is used to kind of build on these hypotheses. So if you want to avoid spoilers for Final Fantasy XVI completely, I would go away, leave. Because we're gonna be looking at some spoilers regarding the early stages of the game, so what looks to be Clive's youth and the events that happen around Rosaria. If you don't want to be spoiled, if you want to go in completely clean and all you've seen is the trailers, you've not looked at anything else, this might not be the video for you. But I'm going to dive straight into it, so don't forget, drop a like on the video, subscribe for future content. There's going to be a lot of Final Fantasy XVI stuff coming, and then straight after that, we're into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, don't miss out. But let's get on with it. So one of the very first things that we saw regarding Final Fantasy XVI was the original trailer. And in that trailer we got our first glimpse of the events that seem to take place in Rosaria, revolving around Clive, Joshua, the Archduke, and of course the icons Ifrit and Phoenix. And interspersed with other bits of footage like icon fights and things like that from Final Fantasy XVI, this early trailer seems to show us the events that go down in Rosaria in a very threadbare way. So we see Joshua, we see Clive, we see an attack seems to happen on Rosaria, we see someone is killed in front of Joshua, Joshua then goes a bit crazy and turns into Phoenix seemingly, and then another icon appears, a second icon of fire, which is Ifrit, from what we can see. And that's pretty much all we get in that first trailer. Now, since then, we've had additional context given to us and things like that, but the most additional context that we've received comes to us via the recent Final Fantasy XVI State of Play. So as the looking through the menus and the showing off some of the things, we see a character called Vivian, and Vivian seems to be in control of a lot of the information regarding to the lore of the world, so the connections between people, the connections between kingdoms and things like that. She seems to have like a map that kind of shows you these interactions between characters and these relationships between characters, and it seems like you can go through it chronologically by event. As you can see at the bottom here, we've got like a little bar. It seems to be coloured in different phases as well, which I'm going to assume is different phases of Clive's life. So you've got his early years, his 20s, and then his 30s. I would assume that's what it's going to end up panning out to be. And we get some text boxes. And in these text boxes, we probably get the most information on what goes down in Rosaria that we've had so far. In fact, we definitely get that information. So, I'm just going to quickly go through it. This is definitely your last chance to piss off if you don't want spoilers, so be warned. But this is referred to in this historical lore section of the game, this kind of menu where you can go through everything. This is referred to as the Night of Flames, and it gives us some context building up to it as well. So initially it seems that Rosaria has decided to take Drake's breath from the Iron Kingdom. This is something that we'd already kind of ascertained from a couple of other trailers, that there was some kind of battle going on between Rosaria and the Iron Kingdom over Drake's breath. Drake's breath is the crystal that exists just off the coast on an island, a volcanic island, and it is technically in the Iron Kingdom's domain, but Rosaria has always used it, and now it seems that they want to claim that crystal fully for themselves. They don't want to share it, they don't want to have any contention around it, they want it, that's it. However, before they can get going, it seems like they've got a bit of tradition and a bit of ceremony that they've got to stick to, because tradition dictates that they must first march north to the Phoenix Gate to perform something called the Rite of Ancestral Communion. And it seems to be at this point that the attack by the Empire on Rosaria happens, so it seems like it takes place at the Phoenix Gate rather than like the main city of Rosaria. But we get some additional context on that as well. So The next entry that we see in this, the Grand Cast, as it seems to be called, is regarding the Knight of Flames again, and it says that acting in concert with the treacherous Duchess Annabella, who is seemingly Clive and Joshua's mother, you know, the Archduke's wife, she is acting in concert with the Empire, so she's allied with the Empire, and the Empire attacks the Phoenix Gate, which is the catalyst for everything that we see happening in the trailers going forwards. Now, during this event is when we see two icons of fire, which is clearly something that shouldn't happen, but there's a few more little bits in between. So in one of the recent gameplay dumps, where we got a load of information, we got a load of footage, we got trailers, I think it was during PAX East, we see some footage of Phoenix fighting Bahamut. And this led me to speculate that Clive may potentially at some point get to summon Phoenix, or this was a scene from earlier in the game. And if we take what we've seen previously, so we've seen that the attack from the Empire leads to the Archduke being betrayed and killed by one of his own men seemingly, which then leads to Joshua kind of erupting with the power of Phoenix in that moment. And it seems like he's not really got any control over it, so I would guess this is potentially the first time he's ever actually summoned Phoenix, or turned into Phoenix. That's kind of the vibe it gives me. But we see those events, we see Phoenix come about, the Empire's attacking, Bahamut is the icon of the Empire. I think we see this Phoenix versus Bahamut fight in this early section of the game. So we've got Bahamut versus Phoenix going on, we've got treachery, the Empire and the Duchess Annabella have betrayed Rosaria and they've attacked Rosaria, and this is what we get. And then we come to the second icon of fire. Now this is something that we've seen in all the trailers, we've seen the emergence of the second icon of fire, we've seen the combat between Phoenix and Ifrit, so we know that this is something that happens, and we've seen what we believe to be Ifrit killing Phoenix. Like, that's what it looks like when you see Ifrit kind of bearing down on something and kind of ripping pieces of it off. I think that's a dead Phoenix right there. So if the Bahamut fight takes place this early in the game, it would suggest that Ifrit doesn't appear straight away. So it would suggest to me that we get Phoenix, a fight goes on between Phoenix and Bahamut, and the rest of the Empire are being fought off and things like that, and during that fight, this is when the Icon of Fire appears. Which gets me thinking a little bit. It makes me think, is there some sort of correlation between the summoning of Phoenix and the emergence of this Icon of Fire? Is there some sort of link between these two things? Because like I say, it seems like this is potentially the first time that Phoenix has been summoned, or Joshua's turned into Phoenix. That's what it seems like to me. It doesn't seem like he's got control over it. It seems like a moment of raw emotion. He's just seen his father killed literally in front of his eyes. So he kind of loses control. The icon takes over. Carnage. Phoenix goes off and fights with Bahamut, but a process has been initiated which brings about the Icon of Fire. So my thinking here kind of goes along the lines of something weird happened in order for Clive to have been passed over and not be the dominant of Phoenix. Everyone expected Clive to be the dominant of Phoenix, but it ended up skipping him and going to Joshua instead. Then, when Joshua eventually does manifest Phoenix, some weird stuff happens, and we end up with this Icon of Fire. And there's a lot of speculation that says that it's Clive all along, who is not just the Ifrit that we've seen him in control of, but is also this Icon of Fire that's responsible for the events in Rosaria. I'm not 100% on that because we do see Ifrit versus Ifrit, Ifrit versus the Infernal Icon. I think there is a separation there. There is definitely a degree of separation. However, additional information that we received from this section of the game, this person, this Vivian, this wonderful Vivian, is that during the events of what happened at the Phoenix Gate, Clive blacks out and can't remember anything about what happened. Now, was he accounted for while he was unconscious, or did someone just find him blacked out and then go, oh, he must have blacked out the whole time? Because if it ends up being a case of someone just finds him blacked out, that's pretty sus. That makes me think maybe Clive is the Icon of Fire. Who knows? I'm not too sure though. I think that's kind of what a lot of the evidence is pointing towards, that Clive potentially is this Icon of Fire. The hooded figure that he keeps seeing is potentially something internal to him. But we do see a scene with Clive and Sid, and it seems like Sid sees the hooded figure as well. it seems like the blonde guy in the Rosarian scenes, I'm not sure what his name is, but the blonde guy who's kind of down on the ground like, oh, a second icon of fire? This is impossible. That guy. Seems like he sees the guy in the robes as well, the hooded figure. So I'm not convinced that this is something that exists within Clive. Not completely, at least. I do think there's some weird stuff going on with Clive, and we're going to get into that in future videos, 100%. But, yeah, I feel like the hooded entity is a separate person. The hooded figure is a completely separate person. Possibly Joshua, but how is he there in the Phoenix Gate while Joshua's turned into Phoenix and he's fighting Bahamut? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that don't link up. They seem like they connect, but they don't quite fully connect. It suggests that there's obviously something more going on with Ifrit, Icon of Fire, Infernal Icon, whatever. Now, after we find Clive blacked out, we learn that he is then enslaved by the Empire under the Duchess's orders. So the Duchess has clearly gone full Empire at this point. She's gone hard Empire. And then not long after that, the Iron Kingdom attempt to invade Rosaria to kind of snatch the land that's pretty much on fire from the sounds of it. I mean, it just sounds like it's on fire and destroyed and ruined. But yeah, that is all of the information that we've got so far on what goes down in Rosaria and this incident referred to as the Night of Flames. So, I mean, it's an interesting one. The Phoenix versus Bahamut thing, I think, is pretty much nailed on to happen here. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I mean, it could potentially happen later on in the game, but my gut feeling is telling me that this happens quite early during this Empire attack on the Phoenix Gate. We find out that the Duchess, Clive's mother, Joshua's mother, has betrayed Rosaria to the Empire, and yeah, it seems like she's given them Clive. It makes me think that the Empire wanted Phoenix, because you see in the first trailer Annabella being quite overprotective of Joshua. It makes me think there's a bit of a long game going on here to kind of steal the dominant of Rosaria and take the Phoenix. And then when that fails, they settle for Clive, because I assume they know that he's got the blessing of the Phoenix, something to that effect. That's kind of what it feels like to me. It feels like the Empire wanted Phoenix. To what end? I'm not sure, but it definitely seems like the Empire wanted Phoenix. And then, yep, Clive enslaved by the Empire. This then leads into the scenes that we see in the first trailer again, actually, where we see Clive sat with a group of other people. We see the battle between Titan and Shiva, and their mission is the dominant. Their mission is to get the dominant. That's all that their mission is. And this is a group of people called the Bastards, apparently. And this is a group of Empire soldiers. But that's a conversation for another video. I think we're going to wrap this one up here. So those are seeming to be the events that go down in Rosaria, the so-called Night of Flames. And this is where Rosaria are looking to initiate a conflict with the Iron Kingdom in order to take their Mother Crystal, Drake's Breath. But the Empire sneak in, make an attack on Rosaria with the help of the treacherous Duchess Annabella. And this leads to Phoenix, which then leads to Ifrit, and seemingly the complete fall of Rosaria. That's what it looks like. So yeah, that's the details. Let me know what you think. Let me know, do you think the summoning of Phoenix trigger Ifrit? I feel like that's what happens. I feel like Ifrit isn't a thing. The Infernal Icon, the Icon of Fire, I don't think it's a thing. I mean, it is a thing, but I don't think it's an active thing until that first summoning of Phoenix. But yeah, let me know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like, subscribe for future content, and keep an eye out for more Final Fantasy XVI videos over the next few weeks as we get closer and closer to release day. But more importantly than all that, have a great day.